Hello, data fans! Want to build your own chatbot Q&A app with Streamlit and LangChain? The rise of ChatGPT has made Q&A chatbot-style apps a way more popular way of interacting with information systems. What I found as Streamlit Q&A app over Notion documents by Harrison Chase, CEO of LangChain. So, I guess let's actually try the app. Clone the project. Why don't you like me? Download the project, create a new Python environment with Conda, install all project dependencies into the environment, open the project in VS Code and start reading the most important file of all the project, the README. Now, any good machine learning project starts with a very important asset, data. I'll export all of my knowledge, and by knowledge I mean all of the Notion pages with my database of YouTube scripts as markdown pages. That data is mostly text, so it's not really clear for a computer that prefers vectors of numbers and matrices, so we need to transform those chunks of Notion text into a vector representation, also called embedding. And then we need to do our best to ensure that embeddings from related chunks of text are close enough using certain similarity metrics like the cosine distance. This project uses the OpenAI library. So I'm guessing this is to send chunks of Notion markdown documents to OpenAI APIs to generate numerical embeddings from GPT 3.5 for each of the documents. Now, when I ask a question to my chatbot, I want it to look for documents in my Notion knowledge base that are closely related to that question. In other words, I want document embeddings with the lowest distance to the embedding of my question. Yes, I am basically asking for a local search engine that stores and queries numerical vectors. We want real databases for this, like Postgres or MongoDB, because you can use extensions for Postgres and MongoDB that add vector search capabilities. But, recently there's been a renewed interest in specialized solutions called vector databases to solve the issue of querying vectors. And you may want to check those out. This project, for example, uses to maintain a local index to search and cluster embeddings vectors for you. If you store all of your Notion embeddings in a face index, it will be easy to load and retrieve the nearest documents for your query. And then when we have the documents related to the question, we can send them as context alongside the question to a large language model and have that model generate an answer for you. And for the generation, this project uses, again, OpenAI GPT 3.5 to do this. And then we got Streamlit and Streamlit Chat as our Python web frontend to build that interactive chatbot. And if you're looking into building that portfolio of Python web apps, then maybe you should consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, wait, let me draw what I think is the general process on this whiteboard, because I'm way too lazy to do it in After Effects. Ouch! All of this, download the Notion pages, query the OpenAI API to get the embeddings for each of those documents, store those embeddings into a local vector database, and then for your own query, like what is Streamlit, need to query the OpenAI API again to get the embedding for your query. Look for all the related or closest embeddings in the local vector database, because those are related, those documents are related to your query, and then sending those documents as context and this query into an OpenAI API again to generate an answer. Yes, that's a lot, and that looks really tiring just for a small demo, right? And then you also have to think about what if I don't want to use the OpenAI API here and here to generate embeddings or generate an answer, but instead I want to use Hugging Face models or Cohere or Gina AI or others. And also even this one here, the local vector database to store embeddings. What if instead I want to use like Pinecone or Weaviate or ChromaDB? Coding the orchestration in a way to easily switch this API, OpenAI API here, or this local vector database that asks for a lot of software engineering for a small machine learning demo. LangChain is one of the rising star frameworks for developing such applications powered by language models. Among other things, it provides all of the necessary abstraction for indexing the embeddings and retrieving documents for generative Q&A. LangChain is kind of like the glue to this pipeline. Now that you've got the general gist of the app, are you ready to try it out? Are you? Let's first analyze the ingest.py file, which is the script responsible, if you remember, for the first part here, so loading all of my data, building embeddings for all of my Notion pages, and then storing them into the local vector database. This will be sending a lot of data to OpenAI to create the embedding, so make sure you've created an OpenAI key and exported it as an environment variable. I think you also need to set up payment details in OpenAI, because when I was doing this demo, I was hitting a rate limit of like 60 requests per hour with the free payment plan. For my 250 documents, each being minimum 500 words, it cost me $1. And you also get $18 of free credits for the first 3 months. No, this video is not sponsored, so it makes it possible to give it a try. Now this script, if you notice, first we define a list of all of the markdown pages in the Notion database. Here you can see the Notion database contained all of my markdown pages from my YouTube scripts in my Notion. So it then declares two variables, data and sources. It puts the content of each file into the data array, and the sources array is going to, I suppose, keep the link, the path to each of those files. So for example, let's go in data. It's like I have almost 500 YouTube scripts. They're not all full, right? The first script, here's my first script, and here's my second script, and then third script, and etc. So this is my data, and then you can check the sources array, the path to my first script, the path to my second script, and the path to my third script, etc. Now, you'll notice if you check the length of my script, it's very long. If you send this to an OpenAI API to build embeddings, it is going to hate you. It's going to tell you that this is way too long. You've hit the token size limit. I think it's 4,000 tokens. You need to actually chunk this Notion script into multiple smaller chunks, and that you can send each of those chunks to the OpenAI API. So that's the role of the character text splitter here. This is going to split each Notion script on the return caveat separator so that each chunk is around 1,500 tokens. Now, we then create a docs and a metadata array, and for each Notion script, which we split the Notion script into multiple chunks, and we put those chunks in the docs array, and the metadata is going to contain for each chunk the path to the original file. If we go to check the content here of the docs, we can see there's now way more than 500 Notion text to build. And you can see the first script has been divided into, I think, two chunks. There's the first chunk and the second chunk. And the metadata, if you check it, you'll see that the first chunk is the 10 extra Streamlit widgets you didn't know, and the second chunk is also from the same file. You got multiple Notion text that now you can send to OpenAI APIs to create those embeddings. So let's do this. LangChain has got everything figured out for you. So using the face from index, you specify the chunks you want to create embeddings on to put into the local vector database, and you specify the API for the embeddings that you want to create. So here we're using embeddings from OpenAI, but you're not limited to this. You can check the documentation for more embeddings and the metadata to have the link back to the original file. You can write down the index on disk when this is done, and the pickle of the store so that we can easily regenerate the face index. Now, when you finish running this script, you will notice a new docs index here and a face store pickle here that you will then want to reuse in your Streamlit app to regenerate your source store. Time to head to our second script, the Streamlit script. Now, let me run that script first. Main. So now I'm running the Streamlit app, the actual Streamlit app. It's taking its time to load the index, the face index here from the docs.index. It will then create a LangChain chain here from the vector dbqa with sources chain. You'll see it takes as input the API that you want to use to generate an answer. So remember, it's this part here, the second part, the second API, and which vector store you want to use. So in our case, we want to use the face store that we created beforehand and that we just reloaded here. So we got this chain. This is the chain that is going to run the second part. So every time you run this chain on a query, like how do I do background image on a Streamlit app, it's going to run that second part and generate this answer here. So from here, when this is done, we then create some, we create a title, Streamlit title here, Streamlit page config that specifies the tab title here. This is the tab title. And the page icon, I don't know why it's not showing. And then we want to use the Streamlit chat component. I've got a video about this, some here, I don't remember where exactly, but it's mostly reusing that video. We first initialize session state. The session state is where we are going to store each of the user interactions with the app. For example, anytime I type a question in the app and the chatbot generates an answer, we're going to put this in session state so that it doesn't lose track of the history. This session state is preserved until I close the app or force refresh the app. Then there's a Streamlit text input, this text here with the hello, how are you doing? The input, the text input here is going to be stored in this input text variable, and this input text variable is going to be passed down to the user input. Anytime there's user input in the text input, it's going to run all of this part. So it's going to run the LangChain chain, so the second part of the chain here, you know, remember that part, second part. It's going to run it on my user input, and this will generate a dictionary which contains the generated answer and the sources it has used for the generation of the answer. So for example, for the hello, how are you? The answer generated from GPT-3.5 is I'm doing well, thank you. And it's using the sources from Rubber Duck Debugging, Copy of Storyboard, Imposter Syndrome. Those are very old videos. The thing is, this query, hello, how are you, has nothing to do with my YouTube script, so I guess it's going to take random sources to generate the answer. So yeah, not very useful query. I think a better query would be, how do you put a background image to a Streamlit app? Put this, so whenever you type a new query in the bot, it's going to rerun the app from top to bottom. So here it's going back up, it's reloading the index, it's reloading the chain, and it's rerunning the chain on the question. And then it gives you the answer stored in session state. You can put a background image to a Streamlit app by adding a markdown element with unsafe allow HTML and injecting a CSS, blah, 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 blah. And it's giving me the sources, background image in Streamlit. It detected this YouTube script was talking about CSS, so it sent this file to OpenAI with my question to generate an answer related to that script and my question. And this is actually the correct answer. And I know which YouTube video to watch back to help my fellow comrades. This is cool, right? There are small little things I would change for this app. It's just very small tips if you want to have a little Streamlit tips. The first one is I had to define an environment variable for this. I don't remember the OpenAI key or something. The thing is, I will probably forget. You will forget to set your environment variable every time you run this app. So this is a bit problematic. And if you deploy this app to Streamlit Cloud, you have no way of setting this environment variable in Streamlit Cloud. So what you want to do instead is use secrets management, Streamlit's own secrets management system. That works by adding a new Streamlit folder only locally. And in this secrets folder, you're going to put a secrets toml file in which you're going to put your OpenAI key equals SK blah, 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 blah. Okay, this is the key you want to put in an environment variable. So then you go back to your main.py file, you import OS, and then in your OS environment variable for the OpenAI key, I don't remember the exact variable, I should check, OpenAI API key. And then you will put st.secrets, which is going to contain the content of your file, your secrets toml file. And then you will request the, I forgot already, OpenAI. Oops. OpenAI. Hey, come back here. OpenAI. So you are, oh, okay, OpenAI, sorry. So that way you retrieve the key from the secrets file, and then you put this into your environment variable, and this then can be used by LangChain to request OpenAI. This is the way of doing, because when you then deploy to Streamlit Cloud, instead of using this file in Streamlit Cloud, you're going to have a configuration menu in which you can put the content of your TOML file. So it makes it easier to manage it this way. Another problem I have with this is anytime I put text here and then without notice I press enter without meaning to, it's going to rerun the app immediately. This is clearly not the question that I wanted to ask. I just pressed enter. This is going to cost you money. It's still sending a request to OpenAI, and so it's costing you money. So that I want to make explicit the sending of the query to my chatbot, so I'm going to use what is called a form in Streamlit. So you can build an ST form that is using the, I don't know, key equal form. You have to put a key, that's for Streamlit. Just user inputs equals st text inputs. So you will notice when you do it this way that now your text input is in a form. You can see the borders of the form here. And so here it's rerunning. It's going to tell you it's missing a submit button. And anytime you put stuff in this text input, it is not going to rerun the app. It will only rerun the app when the submit button is being clicked. So I need to add one submit button pressed, for example, equals st form submit button submit to bots, for example. And instead of testing user input, I'm going to test that the submit button was pressed. So anytime I press the submit button, this boolean will go to true, and otherwise it will stay at false. So let's rerun. Hello, how are you? How do I build Streamlit apps? Just changing this. Now you explicitly need to press the submit to bot and then wait for a little. Oh, howdy. Okay, we've got an answer, blah, blah, blah. And some other stuff you may have noticed is I'm rerunning from top to bottom every time I'm putting a new query. And you will notice that that means this index is reloaded every time I interact with my bot. And this LangChain chain is recreated every time. This is a bit of a waste. You can put those in session state. The way I like to think about session state is I will put every user interaction I need to store in session state. Session state is only emptied when the app is closed or when I do a force refresh. Otherwise, all of the conversation is stored in session state. This is more of a, server data. This is a machine learning model. This is not user interaction. So instead, I would put all of this information into cache. And to do that, we are going to create a new function like load chain. We're going to put this content into the load chain and then decorate it with cache data. We need to return the chain result. Now, every time this load chain is run, it will put into cache the results of the function if the argument has not changed. Now, there's no input argument, so this means this is always going to put in cache the LangChain. So let's create the chain again. And I think the problem with set page config is it needs to be the very first Streamlit function that is called. Otherwise, you're going to have an error. It will tell you set page config should be the first one to be called. So here, I'm going to put this to the top like this. Yeah, not good. Okay, and again, not good. There you are. Rerun. Hello, how are you? So now, finally, the chain here is put into cache. So every time you're calling this from top to bottom, instead of rebuilding the LangChain chain, it is going to fetch the one that is in cache. So now you can submit to bot. It's going to rerun. It should take a little bit less time because it's not reloading this. It's still, network and OpenAI generation, it's still going to take some time, but a little bit less. Put into cache most of your machine learning models. Put in session state most of the user interactions that you want to keep and the results from user interactions. And yeah, and then use an input form to control when you want the app to rerun from top to bottom. Fun fact, the library moves so fast, some of the code here is already 50 patch versions late. If you read the documentation, all of this document loading and splitting can now be done through the vector store index creator, for example. A lot of this is now boilerplate integrated in LangChain. And because it's moving so fast, maybe in 6 months it will have another name, who knows? But the base methodology should stay the same, create embeddings, store into the vector store, retrieve the closest documents to a query and generate the answer. Whatever you're using, LangChain, Haystack, Llama Index, this will stay the same. So assimilate this and you will be able to navigate any code change. So yeah, try building your own Streamlit Q&A bot in the cloud over content that you have written and then go impress some people. I mean, try loading YouTube scripts or Google Drive files or even PDF with tables if you want a challenge. Hey, thanks for making it this far into the video. I just got a new teleprompter and part of this video was filmed with this teleprompter. Try to guess in the comments below which part of the videos. In the meantime, I kinda designed a new landing page. It's ugly, but I don't care. I have a landing page now. So I'll be adding slowly new stuff there. Maybe I'll do a newsletter. Maybe I will open a calendar for free and paid consultations. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I'll see you around. Bye!